Radio is supposed to connect people. For generations, it was the heartbeat of communication, carrying voices, news, and music across great distances. But what happens when that steady, familiar voice suddenly disappears, without warning, without explanation? Tonight, we dive into one of the strangest mysteries ever recorded, the story of a radio station that broadcasted faithfully for years, only to fall silent one night, leaving behind nothing but static. It started innocently enough. In the 1940s, in the small town of Coldwell, listeners tuned into station WXR every evening. Station wasn't remarkable. It played music, shared the news, and sometimes broadcasted live storytelling shows. But for the people of the town, WXR was family. Its hosts were household names, and its late-night voice was as familiar as an old friend whispering through the dark. For nearly a decade, WXR was a part of everyday life. Then, one autumn night, everything changed. The broadcast began normally. Music filled the air, followed by the familiar announcer reading the day's headlines. At 11:45 p.m., the station transitioned to its nightly talk program, hosted by a man named Richard Hale. But halfway through his segment, something strange happened. The broadcast cut off mid-sentence. There was a burst of static, followed by silence. Listeners assumed it was a technical problem. Maybe a storm had interfered with the signal. But minutes turned into hours, and the silence continued. By morning, WXR was still off-air. Concerned residents went to the station building, a modest brick structure on the edge of town. What they found only deepened the mystery. The front door was locked. Inside, lights were still on. Microphones and recording equipment sat in their places, untouched. Coffee cups were half finished, cigarettes still smoldering in ashtrays. Scripts were left open on desks, as if the announcers had stepped out for a moment. But the building itself was empty. No staff, no technicians, no Richard Hale. Every person who had been on shift that night had vanished. Police launched an immediate search. They combed through the station, the surrounding fields, even the nearby river, but no trace of the workers was ever found. No signs of struggle, no footprints leading away, no records of vehicles leaving the site. The people of Coldwell were left in shock. The entire radio station had gone silent, and its staff had disappeared as if they'd never existed. Theories spread like wildfire. Some said it was a government cover-up, that the station had accidentally broadcast something it wasn't supposed to, and officials erased everyone involved. Others believed it was mass abduction, pointing to strange lights reported in the skies over Coldwell that very night. A few whispered of supernatural explanations, that the staff had been pulled into the very airwaves they once controlled, their voices trapped forever in the static. In the days that followed, investigators noticed something even stranger. At exactly 11:45 p.m., the time the station had gone silent, radios in Coldwell still picked up a faint signal. It wasn't music or speech, but a low, rhythmic hum like distorted breathing pulsing through the speakers. Some claimed if you listened long enough, you could hear faint voices buried beneath the noise, calling for help. The government eventually declared the case closed, labeling it an unresolved technical failure, combined with the disappearance of key staff. The official story was weak, and locals knew it. Rumors of a cover-up grew stronger, especially when the station building was abruptly seized by authorities and sealed off. Within weeks, WXR was erased from records, its call letters reassigned as if it had never existed. But legends have a way of surviving. Over the years, travelers passing near Coldwell reported picking up strange broadcasts late at night, voices of long dead announcers reading the weather, music from eras long gone, and always the same static hum at the end, cutting off without warning. One chilling account came from a truck driver in the 1970s. Driving near Coldwell, his radio suddenly tuned itself to an unknown station. He heard a man's voice, clear, confident, mid-sentence, talking about the day's events. The name he gave, Richard Hale, the announcer who had vanished decades earlier. When the trucker pulled over in shock, the voice stopped abruptly, replaced with silence. He swore he hadn't touched the dial. Another report came from a ham radio operator who claimed he intercepted a faint transmission at 11:45 p.m. one night. He recorded it, a woman's voice repeating a single phrase over and over, but distorted so badly it was almost unintelligible. Experts analyzed the tape and concluded the voice matched one of the missing WXR employees. But how could a woman gone for decades still be speaking on the airwaves? Skeptics insist there are rational explanations. They point to radio anomalies, atmospheric interference, even mass hysteria. Some believe The staff staged their own disappearance, escaping debts or scandals by faking the broadcast failure. But if that were true, why leave everything behind? Why never surface again in any other part of the world? The paranormal community has a different answer. They believe WXR crossed a threshold. That night, that radio waves, once thought to be harmless, might act as gateways between worlds. In their view, the staff weren't abducted by men or aliens. They were swallowed by the frequency itself. Their voices became part of the static, forever trapped in a loop, eternally broadcasting from nowhere. To this day, the mystery remains unsolved. The old WXR station building has long since been demolished, but locals still avoid the site, calling it cursed ground. On stormy nights, some claim to hear voices carried on the wind. Snippets of music, half-finished sentences, the faint hum of static drifting through the trees, and there's one final chilling detail. Even now, decades later, listeners across the country sometimes report strange interruptions on their radios at exactly 11:45 p.m. A sudden burst of static, a faint unfamiliar voice, a song from another time, and then silence. So the next time you're driving late at night and the airwaves seem empty, be careful when you hear static. Because somewhere out there, a radio station that should not exist might still be trying to broadcast. And if you hear a voice say, "This is Richard Hale, bringing you the evening news," remember this story, because that broadcast should have ended forever one night long ago.